Look, there's inductive reasoning, there's deja vu, there's language processing, there's deja vu, there's critical thinking, there's deja vu.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and this is interesting because this is a Deja Vu tag and I've already done this, but I have to do it again because there was a grave error in the initial video. So this is literally Deja Vu for me, which is kind of beautiful. And the 13 people that watched the original video before I took it off, they're going to get Deja Vu as well if they watch this, so whoa. My voice is a bit croaky because I just did a gig last night. I sang for 2 hours and technically shouted for the last 20 minutes. So yeah, apologies if my voice is a bit croaky, but I wanted to do this today. I was really pleased to get it done yesterday before the gig happened, and then I watched it back later. I was like, no, I need to do it again. So never mind. This is a Deja Vu tag, and I was tagged by Olly from Criminolly, so thanks for tagging me, Olly. It's a really good tag. And I've got loads of books to go through and loads of things to say about rereading. This is all about rereading. So it's a really interesting thing to think about and a thing to watch other people's videos on this. I've seen loads of people do this tag and it's really interesting. So yeah, the Deja Vu tag. Let's have a look at the questions. So the first question is, do you reread and how often? So I do reread. I used to reread anyway, but I definitely reread more now that I do this channel. There's things I want to talk about, and if I haven't read it for ages, I'll reread it again. And there are some things I've put off because I want to reread them again. So I'm still planning to do a Madison video, but I need to reread some stuff as well as read some things I haven't read. And there's things like my dystopian video I want to do. I'm still hanging on to that, but I want to reread some things, which I'll talk about later. So yeah, I'm definitely rereading things for the channel. But I have always reread anyway, and there's some things I'll always reread just because of the nature of the book, which I'll talk about later as well. So yes, I do reread. I've always reread, but I'm doing it more because of thinking about putting content on here. So two, the second question, why do you reread? All right, so I think there's several reasons why rereading is a good idea. There are some people that just go, no, there's too many books out there. I can't reread anything. And that's fair enough. There's always that balance in there between what's around that you want to read and what you want to reread for these reasons. Because to be fair, there's some really good stuff coming out. Like I've got this because I think this is going to be really good. And that's a brand new book, and you know, just written and all that. You know, no need to reread that. You need to read it. And similarly, Emily St. John Mandel just released Sea of Tranquility. There's always new stuff coming out, so there's always that balance. And basically, I think the reasons to reread are if you don't retain information that well. I don't retain information that well, so I forget half of the books that I read a few months later. So it's like a new book. If you know it's good and you read it again, then you know you remember you really liked it, and you might need to reread it to remind yourself of what is actually the content of the book itself. I think that's a fair point. Also, it does take you back to that feeling of reading it. So one of the things I say later on in one of the questions is about getting back to that immersive feeling that you can get from some books. So I think that's a really good reason to reread, that you know you get a certain feeling from a book and you want to get back into that. And also, sometimes rereading is about how quick and brief they are, because you know I collect cartoonist books. So you dip into them all the time, and there's lots of other types of books you can dip into, so lots of non-fiction books, things like that. So if you're I mean, there's lots of non-fiction books where you're just literally reading it to learn about something. So for educational reasons, you need to reread, because again, you can't retain all this information forever, can you? So there's only so much room in there, and the more information you get, the more it pushes out other information. That's the way we work. So yeah, rereading is absolutely necessary, really, but some people don't necessarily see the reasons why, so they try and avoid it, but there's definitely lots of good reasons to reread. The third question is favourite books to reread. Right, here come the books. So I I'm going to start with one I've mentioned before, but I've reread it many, many times. It's one of my most precious possessions, one of my most precious books. And I have mentioned it before, but I reread it a lot because it's really funny. And that's Ghastly Beyond Belief by Neil Gaiman and Kim Newman. So this is right at the start of their career. And it's a science fiction quotation book. There's an awesome cover in it. But the cover really spells out what the content inside is like. It's lots of quotes from books and films. So first half is books, second half is films. And it's really funny and really good. It's quite rare, so if you do find it, get it, because you'll love it if you're into science fiction. To be fair, even if you're not, I think you'll probably still find it funny. So it's got mad quotations in it, it's got cliches in it, it's got misspellings in the book bit. It's got some really good stuff in it. And there's even a lovely bit at the end that I really like, where it's quotations about authors talking about other authors, which is quite cool. So, yeah, Ghastly Beyond Belief, absolutely brilliant book. And I reread it a lot. I'm going to talk about authors that I reread a lot. So, you know, I've got this sort of top 4 authors that I read a lot. So, like Ray Bradbury, Robert Sheckley, Richard Matheson, and Harlan Ellison. So, I'm just going to show you a few things connected to that. So there's a few books by Richard Matheson, so Shock 3 and Shock 2. I haven't got my copy of Shock 1 anymore, which is a little bit odd. Don't know where that went, but I need to get that again. So my collection isn't quite complete. So Richard Matheson, and obviously he's most famous for I Am Legend. I've got Shrinking Man somewhere. I've got loads of his books. Third from the Sun. I think I've got, well, clearly there's an issue with Shock 1, but I've got most of his books. I haven't got his westerns, or there's a few other sort of odd things he's done, but most of his horror and science fiction, that kind of thing, I've got. So Richard Matheson, I reread him a lot. Robert Sheckley, I've sort of championed him on the channel a lot. I don't really hear people talk about Robert Sheckley, and I do read a lot of Robert Sheckley. He wrote mostly short stories, but he did write some novels, and I've got all of his novels as well. I went through a period of every single time I saw anything by him, I bought it. And I've got about 4 different copies of Mind Swap, and I love Mind Swap, and I've read this, I don't know, about 5 times, and it always makes me laugh. So yeah, I think that's my favourite cover of Mind Swap. There's a few around, but it's a really good fun book. He's definitely an influence on Douglas Adams. Douglas Adams has always denied it, because lots of people have said it, but yeah, I think he's definitely an influence. And then in the non-fiction front, I actually reread this a lot. I've dipped into this a lot. So this is Revolution in the Head, which is a really good book that spells out exactly what happened on every track recorded by the Beatles. So what they played and little anecdotes about what happened in the recordings. So Eleanor Rigby, it's got who played what on it, and it's got how they recorded it. You know, it's the full catalogue. Sergeant Pepper, yeah, it's in order, so you know, as you go along, you get through to the White Album, and then obviously Abbey Road and all that. So yeah, it's a really good book if you're interested in the Beatles, or you're just interested in a sort of a general sense of being interested in how songs are recorded. Then and in the 60s especially, this is a really good book to read, Revolution in the Head. So I reread that a lot. Question 4, what would you like to reread? Okay, I was going to talk about the fact that I am planning to get through as much of Ray Bradbury's catalogue as I can as a reread. So there's quite a few things that I've got to read as a reread. So I've read everything I own, I think. But these are all books I'm going to reread for the next little while, because I'd like to, well, just get back into the Ray Bradbury mindset, because he's a hell of a writer. This is also why I'm reading Stephen King, and Stephen King, I think, is definitely influenced by Ray Bradbury, and I think they've got sometimes they've got a similar mindset. That sort of I guess it's the setting is probably comparable. Maybe I might be talking absolute bollocks. So, yeah. Number 5. What book do you predict will be so good that you'll want to reread it? Okay, so for this, I'm going to choose 2 books. I haven't got this first book yet. It's Andy Weir's newest book. I like Andy Weir a lot. I absolutely love The Martian, and I'll probably reread that actually. But his new book, Project Hail Mary, is pretty much universally loved, it seems, and I'm not surprised. But a lot of people say it's better than The Martian. So yeah, I am definitely going to read that, and I'll probably reread it as well. I imagine I expect it to be that good. And the other one is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. So I haven't read that yet, but I've just got a feeling it's going to be so good I'm going to reread it. So those are the 2 I'm picking for that question. Have you read those? Tell me what you think of those. Number 7. Tell us about... No, sorry. Question number 6. Pick a book from your younger years that you want to reread. Okay, so I'm really hoping this is going to spark off a discussion, because these books are really special to me. There's 5 in the series, but I can't find number 4, so I need to make sure I get number 4 when I start doing this. But at some point very soon, I want to reread the Belgariad. So have you read the Belgariad, and what did you think of it? When I was a kid, this was really important. So I read Lord of the Rings when I was about 15, took me ages, and then that sort of got me into reading fantasy. So I was reading these Lashana books, and I read the Belgariad, and the Belgariad really hit me home. It was hit me home, really hit home. I was totally immersed. I loved the characters. Clearly, the plot is absolutely lifted from Tolkien. Everyone knows that, and a lot of fantasy books at the time were totally lifted off Tolkien's ideas, his sort of parameters, and the sort of plot points, and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. But the characters are beautifully drawn out in this, and it's an absolute pleasure to read. So I want to read it again, because I genuinely haven't read this for decades. So I'm going to find number 4, read it again soon, but probably read it again once I've finished reading the Mistborn trilogy and finished reading the First Law trilogy as well. So once I've done that, I'm going to get onto the Belgariad again, which I'm really looking forward to, because I know I absolutely loved it. It's funny, because me and my mates, when we were kids, we talked about this in the same way that we talked about TV and film. So we talked about Star Wars and all that sort of stuff. But we also talked about Monkey. Anyone seen the TV series Monkey? Classic. We talk about this, and we talk about how a lot of us loved Silk, the thief. We thought he was really cool. So yeah, I remember the characters' names. It's Dernick, it's Garion, it's Polgara, all that stuff. But I don't remember a lot of the kind of milestones in the story. So, and then I remember there was a guy that talked in sort of old English style. He was like a knight. He was a Malorian. Can't remember what his name was. So lots of interesting things there to remember and to discover again on rereading it. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's something from my young years, absolutely, that I want to bring back into my head. And then question number 7. Tell us about a book or a series that's so complex that you'll want to reread it. And what I'm going to choose for that question is the books I've got, and I absolutely love, that mean a lot to me, on primate cognition. So all the primates, we all understand nowadays that they're cousins of ours. We share a lot of behaviour and thought processes with them. Although I think probably people have different levels of how much they understand that. And obviously the really famous one is In the Shadow of Man by Jane Goodall. But there's a really cool one here about the bonobo. It's called The Bonobo and the Atheist, and it's that idea of finding humanism in primate society and some sort of moral code, moral grounding. So it's really cool. And then you've got Next of Kin, which again goes more into their relationship with us and their similarities and that kind of thing, and all is based around conversations with chimpanzees, which is awesome. This one's a really good academic book called Primate Cognition, literally on primate cognition. So it's, obviously does what it says on the tin. And this was the first book I bought on this many years ago, and it really opened my mind massively to this whole thing, which is called Reaching into Thought, The Minds of the Great Apes. So I hugely recommend this. It's a fantastic book. And, you know, you learn how they trick people, trick other apes. They lie, they cheat, they laugh, you know, they've got a sense of humour. It's all stuff that you wouldn't necessarily know until you knew. So things that people don't realise, I think. So, yeah, that's the sort of thing that I love rereading, to kind of get that the complexity of their minds, to refer back to the question, in my head. And question number 8, what genre is good for rereading? Okay, so clearly I've already said I'm going to reread the Belgariad, and I do think fantasy books are really good for rereading, because that idea, it immerses you back into that world. So I think that's just a given. I think that's good. But also, cartoonist books are good for that, because they're very short. You can go in there, it just makes you smile or laugh. And I give shout out to Gary Larson. So, oh, there's a Bizarro book in there, and also Dan Ferraro. But oh, there's 2. Oh, someone gone crazy. These are Gary Larson books, yeah. So these sort of classic kind of shaped cartoonist books, you know, just randomly pick one and make, you know, probably make you laugh. And just nip into them and enjoy. So I think they're a good shout, and obviously non-fiction books. So I'm going to just mention 2 books that are based on classic albums. So The Making of the Album Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. It's a really fascinating read. And then The Making of the Aretha Franklin soul classic I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. Really, really good detail about the recording sessions. So yeah, worth rereading. I do think those kind of things, yeah, you don't retain all that information, and it's not the sort of thing that you need to be in the right frame of mind. You can just dip into it. You know, some of the heavy stuff you might want to learn about, you might hesitate to go back to, but those kind of things, just fun, isn't it? So I think they're a good shout. Oh, and just I was going to mention with cartoonist stuff, sometimes you can mix that kind of educational thing with cartoonist stuff, and there's lots of really good cartoonist books that are based around like history, and you've got things like the Cartoon Century. So this is like the 20th century, but in through the eyes of its cartoonists. So you know, in the medium of cartoons, which is really cool. So editorial cartoons, and then you've got a similar kind of thing, but just based around World War II. World War II in cartoons. That's an absolute classic cartoon there at the front. And, you know, you can get a lot out of that. And I think it shows you how deep cartoons can go, as well as obviously the ones that just want to make you laugh. So I think they're very easily rereadable, which is why I like collecting them, really. Don't feel like it's a waste of just sitting there, you know. Right, question number 9. Book that you liked more from rereading it. So I'm not going to literally list something that I liked more, because I can't think of something. But I can tell you about a book that I liked more than I thought I was going to, because I thought it would be dated, but I didn't think it was that dated. It was a bit dated, but not that dated, and it didn't spoil my enjoyment. So The Stained Steel Rat, I've got the other one there as well. There was 5 in the original series, and I've read all of them anyway. There's about 8 now, I think, or maybe 9, but I've read them all, and I really like them. But because it was written so long ago, and because he's quite sort of typically masculine and you know, you're kind of like wisecracking hero, all that kind of thing, it could be a bit dated, a bit old-fashioned, and there's a bit, but I really enjoyed reading it again, and I didn't think it was really an issue, so that was nice. So Stained Steel Rat books, I'm kind of put down to that question about what you like more. So I didn't like it more because I loved it when I was a kid, but definitely more than I thought I would. And question number 10, a book you like less. So sadly, I have definitely championed Charles Bukowski on this channel before. He's my favourite poet, and his poems are amazing. But I reread this recently, and I think I've changed possibly, because Charles Bukowski is Charles Bukowski. He's notoriously a problematic man, notoriously not a nice man, And his poetry kind of comes out of that. So he's got an incredibly cynical, nasty take on the world. And if you're in the right frame of mind, it can be quite life-affirming, weirdly. But also, his way of words, the way he uses words, is just amazing. So he's a great wordsmith. So that's what makes him a great poet. And that's why everyone talks about what a great wordsmith he is. But yeah, I found this really hard work. I found this more and more irritating as I was reading it because of the way he described and described and put down, and got the character being irritated by the women, and it got on my nerves. The more and more I read it, the more I thought, this is hard work. I did finish it because of Bukowski, but yeah, it was definitely hard work for me. So I definitely liked it less than I did when I read it when I was a teenager, and I think it's because those kind of things just got more irritating. Whereas I think when I was younger, I didn't particularly like that aspect of it, but it didn't irritate me as much. So yeah, that was a bit of a shock. But you know, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to like or read him anymore, because there's much more to him than that. But that is definitely an aspect of his writing, and it's definitely an aspect of that book in particular. So yeah, that was a bit of a shame. Question number 11. What do you plan to reread before the end of the year? Okay, so I do plan to continue my journey through Terry Pratchett's Discworld, and also that is going to include some rereads. So some of these things, I've got books of about 30 Discworld books, and a lot of them are read, but a lot of them I haven't. And the ones I have read, some of them I want to reread. So the first 4 for definite, because I read them so long ago, I want to reread them. And I want to make up a video on my favourite Discworld books. It's going to take me a while, because I want to read some more first. But I've got loads, and I think they're brilliant. So Discworld books I'm going to reread again. I want to reread Make Room, Make Room. I loved that when I was a kid. I want to read it again, and I want to read Fahrenheit 451 again. And this is towards deciding what books I'm going to include in my video on dystopias. And yeah, I can't wait to reread these again. Just finding the time and prioritising other books at the minute, but I'm going to do that at some point. I recently reread Alice in Wonderland, which I really enjoyed. I love that book. And I'm going to reread Through the Looking Glass, and then I'm going to read this version of Alice in Wonderland, which is an annotated version. So it's really cool, because you've got the text and you've got other commentary by the side of it. So this was a really nice find. So I'm going to read that as well. So that's going to be rereading the book again, but with an extra additional set of annotations. Oh, I want to reread the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book. So just the first 4, because the 5th one I thought was really hard work, but the first 4 are absolute genius. So I'm going to reread them as well. And I'd like to reread Gulliver's Travels. So this is because, again, I read it a long time ago, and I want to discover more about the social commentary aspects of Gulliver's Travels. So I know the story, I remember the story, but I don't remember everything he said about people. So that's what I'm looking forward to rediscovering. I love this edition, by the way, as well. It's Bedford St Martin's Press. It's a really nice edition, and it's got a huge essay at the beginning about the meaning of it. But I want to read that after I've reread the actual book itself. So yeah, I'll probably do a video on this once I reread it. But that's before the end of the year. I don't know when it's going to be, but it's going to be at some point before the end of the year. And then one last thing I want to mention, I want to reread the Fritz Leiber Pfeffel and Grey Mauser books. So I've got one big compendium, which is half of the books, up in the loft, and I've got these individual ones. But I want to rebuy these editions of the books, because I love the covers. There's something about the style of it I really like. And I've got, that's book 6. I think this is book 5. Yeah, that's book 5. There's 6 books in all. And somewhere I've got Swords and Deviltry, the first book, somewhere as well. But again, I want to get these editions, so I am looking for them in the wild. But I remember these were really big books for me when I was a kid. When I was reading, when I read Lord of the Rings, the Shannara books, the Belgariad, I read the Pfeffel and Grey Mauser books, and they were some of my favourite books I'd read. So I can't wait to get into these again. I like fantasy that's a little bit small scale, So that's one of the things I loved about Mistborn, that ultimately it's a heist story, their first book. So that was really cool. It had a big setting, but ultimately it was about a heist. So I like that. And I like the fact that those books are about two thieves, and the adventures they go on. So yeah, that's my plan for rereading. Tell me if you've read any of those books and what you think about those choices and what you reread. I've loved watching other YouTubers do these videos. I think it's a really interesting subject. But I need to tag some people. I'm going to tag 2 people because I don't think they've done the tag. And I always watch their videos, so we'll see what they think of this tag. And that's David Wiley and Pax from Pax Panic. So I hope you like the idea of the tag. And thanks a lot. Bye.
Paint me a picture